Hey, closet busters and bold move makers. It is time once again for Life Uncloseted. So I want you to gather around because it is time once again to kick down those closet doors of your life. We're here to escape our BS, explore our fears, and elevate our self-expression. I'm your host, Rick Clemens. I'm the bold move expert and that coming out guy who's going to take you to the party, the pulpit, the wake, and back to the party of living your life uncloseted. So come on along with me and grab hold of yourself and get ready to step out, step up, and step into facing your fears, making your bold moves, and living life without apologies. Now let's get to the show. Hey, Life Uncloseted family. It is time once again for another episode of Life Uncloseted. I'm your host, Rick Clemens. And as you know, we always come into this show with lots of beautiful coming out stories and challenges people have had, even if some of those challenges just scare the crap out of you. In fact, sometimes there's so many things that happen in our life that scare us the most that we get frozen and we don't know what we're going to do. But I want to encourage you to know that you can walk through this stuff even if you feel scared. And before we dive into the podcast, just a reminder, if you are feeling a little bit scared, you're not sure what's next, hop on over to rickclemens.com. Go to lifeuncloseted.com and you'll find a little bit of help to help you through some of these challenges. You can even discover what it looks like and what's holding you back from living your unapologetic life. But if you're feeling really scared and you've said, this really scares me the most, I want you to know that today's guest, who is a music artist, he has just come out with, and if you haven't kind of picked up on this, he's come out with a new song, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you might figure it out real quickly. His name is Trent Park, and he is going to share with us here on National Coming Out Day a little bit of his story about his music, about what it feels like to feel like sometimes you are just that one or two people in a crowd that suddenly everybody knows you're different. So I'm going to shut and zip my lips and welcome Trent Park to the Life Uncloseted podcast, man. So Trent, thanks for being here, buddy.
Thanks so much, Rick, for having me. This is great.
The show is now yours. I just shut up and you just kind of tell your story and you take it. I mean, right? You're used to being on stage singing all this sort of stuff, but I'm
this
kidding.
Is what scares me most.
Yeah, this is what scares me most. Okay, so there's the name of the song,
talking
right?
About myself.
Yeah. So it is. Isn't that interesting how talking about ourselves is like everybody freezes up? It's like, oh no, it's easy to talk about other people, but then when it comes to ourselves, it's really scary. So
it's so scary.
Why is that for you?
There's I heard from a data pool, I don't know if this is true or not, but like the two most scariest things for people is death and talking in front of people, public.
Yep.
So I definitely have that, but I got to overcome it.
Yeah. And, it is interesting. And I actually coach people. I'm a coach for speakers as well. And it's so interesting because even some of the best known speakers that I know, they're like, yeah, I'm scared every time I walk out on stage. I'm like, what? I've seen you, seriously, what's up with that? But, so let's kind of just dive into, here we are, National Coming Out Day. And, I know there's a lot of people that are probably like literally saying it scares me the most to even think about coming out. So what scared you the most about taking that step and finally saying, hey, here's who I am, and no matter what, I'm going to start sharing it?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a loaded journey for me because I come from upstate New York, Syracuse. It has like a small town feel. It feels like it's 10 years behind everything else that's happening in the world, especially based in LA now. I could see the difference. But I grew up I'm a Black Mexican in a predominantly like white school that I was growing up in. There was not a lot of gay people that I knew. And my parents are pastors, and they still are pastors in Syracuse. Shout out to New Beginnings. There's this whole layer of kind of identity finding for me because I'd never had a clique that I really fit in throughout my entire life because there was no one really like me in actual sense. Like I was, a mixed kid. Didn't necessarily fit in with too many Black people because they said I talked too white. I didn't fit in with like my Mexican folks because I didn't really talk Spanish really well because I was in a predominantly white school in the beginning. so we didn't speak Spanish, and it was just all these different layers of things. And I was really concerned about, I became quickly concerned about how I was perceived by other people, simply because I had this ambiguity.
Right.
Growing up, I was straight passing. So there's some people that would kind of be curious about me, some people that wouldn't necessarily know. Um, so I had this like ambiguity within myself, and what people, how people saw me and felt about me.
Hmm.
So growing up in that, it was just like terrifying because, I had like all these cards I could play, and I didn't know, like I had to kind of like code switch to people. Um, and I really wanted to like educate myself as much as possible, and like try to be like, maybe I'll be the smartest, and that didn't really work out in school. Or maybe I'll be funny, and that was really awkward. And I tried sports, I did all these different things, and trying to fit in with all these different types of people. And uh, it was just, for me, like I came out so late in terms of like fully for my parents. It was like
Mm.
way late in my story, earlier on to other people, but I just was so concerned about, my close family and friends, and you know that
Hmm.
kind of scenario. So that was kind of scary.
It is scary. And for those that are listening on this day or any day that they listen to this podcast, but the scariness is sometimes it's the scariness of how you have to show up, regardless of whether it's the color of your skin, or because maybe you don't speak enough Spanish, or because you don't talk enough Black, or you're gay, but you don't want
Hmm.
it. The scariness is how we perceive it within our own mind. And I think the beauty that begins to show up is when we realize that the scariness, a lot of times, and I'm not saying 100% of the time, but a lot of times is what we create. Yes, there's
Hmm.
external scariness too, which is a different ballgame altogether. But I know for me, and I like you, I came out late in life, and I thought, oh, I'm so late to the game. It's so interesting because I coach men out of the closet, and I have guys that are like 50 years old coming out, and they're like, I'm so late to the game. And then I'll have somebody that's like 70 years old, and they're like, I'm so late to the game. And then suddenly I'm coaching a guy that's like 24, and he's like, I'm so late to the game. And I just want to bitch slap him, like, girl, it's not even close, you
All
know.
right.
But again, it's such a beautiful thing because it's our own perceptions that makes it really scary. So once you realize that the scariest thing, probably, or one of the scariest things you had to do, is coming from a family with two pastors. Once you realize that was probably going to be one of the scariest moments, is talking to your parents. What started to happen for you once you realized, I am walking through this door? Was it like, okay, the relief is now it's done, or was it still like, okay, but is there some bigger stuff yet to come? What was kind of going
Right.
on for you?
I mean, it's colored in a lot of different ways, because right on the cusp of me, so right when I was going into my 30s is when I decided to come out, and it literally was like the night before my birthday. And my music, I think, scared me most, like maybe was about to come out like a month or two.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just walking this identity of like, I really want to be, um, I don't want to walk in with this in my 30s with the same battles that I was facing in my 20s. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready to face bigger battles. For me to be equipped for the next season of my career, in my personal life and emotional life, I really need to um, face this um, head on, so I could walk into a new battle, per se, in my 30s, and I'm equipped for it, and I'm stronger, and I have bandwidth and ammunition against it to, focus in on my career. So yeah, it was literally like a call the night before my birthday, and I was walking to get a coffee, and my parents called, and it kind of just came out. And I'm like, I can't, I've wore this for too long, and it's just, you know I want to be transparent in my life and my career, because my music is really coated with sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Always, my lyrics always have, triple meaning based on how people hear or the season that they're in life. And people were always curious of like, oh, even the happy pop songs that you write, because I started as, in music as a writer and producer for other people. to like there's this tint of sadness. And I think it's always been because, you know, my true self was never been able to be full because I respected, you know, my family and friends. So after my close family and friends of like, you know, the fact of the matter is my parents being pastors and growing up in like a very 10-year behind culture, the last thing I wanted was for them to get reprimanded saying that their faith is not strong enough. You have a gay son. That was a whole level of me. And I was, you know, I was really worried about, you know, if people leave the church, that's their finances and all this kind of stuff. So I had this like deep layers of if I come out, it could equal something that's not, it's not just my life, it's theirs. But I really wanted to respect them and let them be able to be part of my life and their life, because since I'm part of their life. And when I said it, they were very open and loving, and they're just amazing people, and I look up to them. And from then on, that night after that conversation, I got Korean barbecue with a couple friends, and I was like, it just felt, you know, like a weight lifted, but not like right away. It was just like
Right.
this soft lift, and I
Mhm.
and I felt confident, like, okay, now when I go into this music, you know, I don't have to pretend, you know, because I'm in a lot of writing camps with people, and they're like, oh, yo, that chick's like mad hot. I'm like, I don't
Right.
want to pretend anymore. I'm like tired, and I just want, I'm like, you know who I am, and you know, and it's what it is, and kind of going into this journey of being an artist, I'm like, you know, I don't need to be loud with whatever I am, but I need to be
Mhm.
who I am.
Yeah.
And there's different levels of being uncloseted. Some people do it in a dramatic way. Some do it very silent. Some don't even tell anyone. But the cognitive choice of coming out and living your truth, you know, it doesn't need a response from anyone. Like it's you coming out and you being that person, and how people perceive you is sometimes none of your business.
Yeah. The pretending
But
piece is so it's so big and it's so
mhm,
heavy. And
yeah,
for many people, I don't know that that hits them until the moment that they're really ready to walk through the door. They're like, this just feels so such a burden. And I'm like, yeah, pretending to be something is really heavy. In fact, that's one of my key quotes that I have come up with when I speak on stage. And the quote is, the truth of who you are is far
mhm,
more powerful than the false truth that you're pretending to be. And
so true.
it's it's one of the key cornerstones that I think can really help anybody who's listening today about the thoughts of coming out. While it seems really heavy to come out, and it can be, and a lot of
Mhm.
times it's really heavy. And then there's the lucky ones that like, yeah, I came out. My parents turned to me and said, "Well, we knew, we were just waiting for you to come out." You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, okay, well then, could y'all just kind of said something like, 2 years ago, so to speak? But it's this heaviness that we stand there with, and I try to help my clients when I'm working with them understand that, is it heavier to carry the pretending, or is it heavier to walk into the truth? And for some, it's heavier
Mhm,
to walk into the truth. But
mhm,
on the other side is where, hopefully, even in the worst case scenarios, you release the heaviness. Now, you may be confronted with a whole new heaviness because then suddenly nobody likes you, blah, blah, blah. But I often feel, and what you just said was so powerful, of, I don't want to be sitting in these writing studios and going, yeah, I'm not gonna write about, some chick turning me on, 'cause it ain't happening,
right, yeah.
um but to be able to be that truthful, what's the greatest thing that you found now by just coming forward? Because I know this was all around the time the song came out and everything, and you're like, okay, I can't do it. And I can totally relate to this, man, because it was some years later after I came out, but I was on the Ricky Lake show, her second show, right as it launched. And I'm like, okay, there's some truth telling I got to do with some people before I go on this show, because I was operating under the auspices that this could get ugly on her show, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I need to make sure we're good. but as you came through this, what have you found on the other side that's been better for you?
I mean, there was coming through this other side, I feel like um there was indeed a loneliness prior to this, right? Like even if because like I tried to be popular and I got a lot of friends and I I tried to code switch around certain people so I made them feel certain comfortable. And my biggest worry of coming out was like, well, what if I lose these friends or
Mm-hmm.
what if I lose these people around me? And the scenario that I came up with is like, just because I have these people around me, I still feel this loneliness, right? Because no one could resonate with who I am because I'm not being transparent.
Mm-hmm.
So coming on this other side, yes, I may face loneliness, but it's twofold on the other side. So I was like, I'm not gonna leave this world without being my true self and honest with myself and, vulnerable. And that's really, really hard as a person and it's hard as an artist because a lot of artists don't come out because, the music that I'm doing, um, isn't very flamboyant. It's very it has like a hip hop edge, trap edge, sad boy
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And a lot of people listen to it and they're like, "Oh, that's fire." And they're like, "What girl you were talking to?" And they slide in my DMs and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Funny story."
Right.
But I want that resonation. I want it to resonate with all people. So I try in the beginning before um I didn't I never wrote he or she. I
Mm.
always wrote like a bigger idea.
Right.
And now that I'm past that moment, because I do have to like kind of become a chameleon in these different writing sessions of absorbing into the other artist.
Right.
And I felt, I've now that I'm kind of past it, and I've become out in me, I'm able to freely translate into different artists personas. Like if I'm writing for a girl, if I'm writing
Mm-hmm.
for um, uh, you know, like a dance pop
Right.
queen that's doing, she's like, I want a new thing, but I could translate into their artistry fully and unapologetically without feeling like I'm censoring myself before I'm even saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I'm like out, I feel like, you know, um, I freely can uh, just be myself, have the conversation of how I want to be. The friends that I have I have, I don't have too many friends. I kind of keep it close to keep it tight.
Yep.
But the friends that I have are just so encouraging to my career and who I am as a person and hope that they're like waiting till I find the right guy, which I'm hoping
Mm-hmm.
for. So if anyone's listening,
I was gonna
but
say, so he just did two plugs. A, he needs friends, and B, he needs a guy. Letting
yeah,
y'all know. Yeah, yeah. When
listen
you
to
all
the
see,
song and you'll be like,
yeah, yeah, and when you see a picture of him, you'll go, okay, he's cute. Let's see what we can make happen here. So,
right, slide
but
in the
so yeah,
DMs.
let's talk a little bit about the song because I think I love the title. Scares me most because for anybody, it can be a lot of different things that scare me most. The fact that I
Mhm.
have to go swim after we get this done scares most people the most when they see me in my Speedo. But it's just one of those interesting things that what scares us most and kind of what we talked about earlier is can be some of our own stuff, but then there's the reality. So bring us into that world of why scares me most came about, and just give us all the dirt, girl. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, I got
give us the
dirt. Oh, I
inside
got dirt.
scoop on this. So,
So the funny thing is, like, when I wrote it, I was in this like cloud, and now I'm finding like the like different meanings of like why I actually wrote this song and what it means to me. And like the current version of that interpretation is, um, I wrote this song before I was fully out to a lot of people, right?
mm,
Um, so the song title "Scare Me Most," and it's basically about, villainizing love because we see these fairy tales and these Disney stories, and they're all about, love being the hero and it's this beautiful thing and everyone's trying to chase it. But for me, it really scared me because if I find love, it's going to make me the most vulnerable. I'm going to sacrifice, you know, I'm a type of guy that like I'm like a fight for you, die for you type love, like whatever you need, that's what it is. And I think that's why I have a few solid friends, because to be a real, for me, the definition of friend and to be in a relationship is like, I'm really there for you, but that takes bandwidth, right?
Yep.
But the song was literally about like villainizing love, and like knowing if I fall in love, there'll be a sacrifice to um, different friendship relationships that I have, and maybe my career could not be as focused in on as much. So I basically within the song just talk about like I'm not afraid of ghosts, demons, like put anything in front of me, I'm like I could kind of bear with it, but if I fall in love, which I think I have um, a couple times, and it just made me feel just helpless, but
Hmm.
this sense of bliss, and it just like, it got me to this other place where I kind of lost the better sense of myself.
Hmm.
So that's what this song is about. It really is about like, wanting love but being terrified of it.
But it's interesting too, Trent, the way you just described this, because it's actually parallel to what happens when we come out of the closet. We so
Hmm.
much want to be loved, and we so much want to be have people be there for us. And yet, in an interesting way, there's like this villainizing of being an out person that happens. And so part of coming out is like being part of our most vulnerable self. We know we are
Hmm.
putting ourselves in a space that's going to be called out. It's going to be like put us in a whole new world where, okay, now we're part of that marginalized community. And because of what you've done with this song, I love the parallels, because it is about a relationship. No matter how you look at it,
Hmm.
scaring you the most is about any kind of relationship that puts you in that vulnerable space, because we step out of
Absolutely.
ourselves, and not really step out of ourselves. We take ourselves to a whole nother plane, whether it's,
Hmm.
okay, I'm stepping out to tell you I'm gay, or I'm stepping out to tell you I love you. And I want to really be deeply in this relationship. It puts us in a place that for most humans is really scary to be that open, because we all fear getting hurt.
Absolutely. It's very, that love sense, even like being in the closet, it's like, do I fully love this person and do they fully love me? Because I'm not truly myself, so how could they love me fully? And how can I love them fully if I'm still in this closet? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And
Hmm.
when you're out of it, there's these two different types of love, and they're different colors of love. Not saying
Hmm.
that one in the closet and out of the closet is not
Right.
love, but there's such a certain beauty and confidence within the love after you kind of come out of the closet, where it's like, they see me for me, and it's not like, you know like a game or just like anything, like, me for me, I'm out, and you still accept that, and I accept you for what it is, and that coloring of love is just so beautiful.
It is. And even when that love may go the other direction, like, okay, wow, I just told you about this and this is who I am. And then suddenly they're like, well, I can't accept that. It's still a very beautiful awakening of, okay, now I really see this person. And it may
Yeah.
not be pretty, but okay, now I really see this person. But Martha Beck, who is a life coach, really well known life coach, and she actually was one of Oprah's proteges, she has one of my favorite sayings around all of this. She says, so if I'm pretending to be someone I'm not, and you're pretending to be someone you're not, then we're just in a pretend relationship. And even if that pretending is me pretending to be someone I'm not, we're still in a pretend relationship, because you don't really know me. So
Right.
what kind of relationship is this? And for those of
So
you that
true.
are in this space, where regardless of where you are in this journey of, you may just be thinking, I think I might be gay. Okay, cool. Just wherever you are, or you're like, I'm coming out today and I'm kicking the door down, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe you've been out for a while and you're still questioning. Just
Hmm.
realize that where you are is where you're meant to be. And as you release the pretending, you're going to start to feel more yourself and be more yourself. But that also opens the doorway for other people to show another part of themselves that you may not have seen.
I totally agree with that. And also in that moment, like, coming out, you may not have a representation around your environment. Like, I know people may be listening in, like, you know, the countries of Idaho, or, the big cities or wherever, where they
Hmm.
don't have a representation of visually, okay, I see what gay people in my town are, and I'm not that, because
Yeah.
I grew up in a place where, there wasn't a lot of gay people. There wasn't a lot of gay professional Black people that were, you know, smart, educated, driven, that I was jealous of their careers and their lifestyles. There was not that representation. Now, luckily, through social media, we're able to see, people that are every shade of gay, from you could be the loudest drag queen, you could be, a humble writer that's to yourself inside. There's these different shades of personality that are now out. But a lot of people, they're like, well, in my natural environment, I still don't have that. And I'm in a town or a family, even if it's just
Hmm.
a family, to be honest,
Right.
where it's not accepted. But just know that you create your culture and you create your life, and it's a
Absolutely.
beautiful thing to be yourself. And the challenge of being yourself um, is supposed to be hard. If it was easy, I wish it was more easy. But I just encourage everyone all the time is just to be your most natural self. And even if you're listening and you're not gay, but you're a supporter and an ally, just really reach out to people that are doing art, or creating, or being themselves, and you have that hint. Just really
Yeah.
be supportive, because it's not the easiest journey to be born and then kind of come out again as this
Hmm.
new person. So
Exactly. And you brought up something that I feel very adamant about is there's all sorts of colors of the rainbow of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and there is no one
yeah,
way to be any of those things. And I
yeah,
get a little frustrated with our own community when they're like, "Oh, you're not gay enough." I'm sorry,
yep.
I'm
I got.
gay the way I'm gay. So,
Oh my God, that's a whole nother story, because
yes,
like, oh, you're not gay enough. I'm only into Latino. Are you Latino, or are you this? And
right,
it's just like, yeah, listen, I'm not. I am who I am, and
right,
what it is. But I
right.
think I think it's just really important, where, like, yeah, there's so many shades of gay, and don't be intimidated by, like, you know, I know some people that they're like, well, I don't know LGBTQI. I'm like, I don't know what part I am in that. And just like, don't like, definition
Yep,
is what you define it as, and there's no rush, and no one should put a label on you besides you.
yep,
And just, be yourself and explore that possibility of identity within everything, within
mhm,
sexuality, within your career. And don't define yourself too early, and be sensitive to your growing, so that you
right.
know you grow into that definition.
I'm such a sassy bitch that when somebody will say, "Oh, you're gay," I'm like, "Yep, I like dick." Any other questions? Okay, we're good, right? It's like we just
that
covered
that clears the
everything.
air pretty quick.
It's like
Yeah,
that's it. That's about all you need to know. And they're like, and a lot of people are like, "I would have never thought you're gay." I'm like, "Well, I guess you have certain stereotypes you put people in, then, don't you? Because I am gay and I like dick, and that's about it. So can we move
yeah,
on now?"
yeah. And that's an
Of course,
educating
there's many
educating
layers
moment
to
for
that
them.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. So many layers, I'm sure.
Yes, that's a whole nother show of, well, okay, so what are all the layers of gay? Well,
Episode 2.
episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But so as we kind of get ready to wrap it up here, Trent, first of all, I love what you're doing. I love, and you're up.
Thank
We
you.
didn't talk. Well, we didn't talk about something else. You're doing this independent, right? There's no
I'm
label behind you.
com- I'm literally solo dolo. Everything I put out, from my YouTubes to my visuals, I curate with a great team and community behind me. But it's really, really hard, as everyone knows, to do everything by yourself. But to be seen within the music art world, you do have to put stuff out consistently, and you have to put visuals behind it, and
Mhm.
it costs money. And during COVID, it's just like the worst.
Yep.
But I've just been like, I use the ashes that I have, and I make it beautiful, and I put some water in it, and I form it to be whatever it is. But yeah, all the visuals that you see on like YouTube that are out, because I put a visual to every song that I do. Like I produce it, I co-produce it with people, I write it, I sing it, I facilitate the mix and master and the artwork and the font and when it's coming out, and put it out on DSPs and yada yada yada.
That's
so
awesome, man. Very cool.
it's a lot of work, but I'm really, really grateful that I'm given both the talent and the patience to do all of it.
Okay, so now we know he needs friends, he needs a man,
Yeah.
and he needs some help too. So there we go. We've gone full circle.
Feel
here.
free to Venmo me and PayPal me.
Exactly. So before we wrap it
all
up,
the
though,
above.
if you were to want to just leave one more, like, hey, here's my tidbit of advice, or just a little bit of inspiration for somebody who may be in that space of, okay, I'm either starting my journey, or here it is, National Coming Out Day, and I'm thinking through this whole thing, what would be something you'd want to just leave them with?
I would
besides
leave
your
people
Venmo
with
account, besides your Venmo account number.
Please, trentparkmusic@gmail.com. I would honestly say, don't let your environment bleed too much into your identity. I think it's very important for people, especially empaths like me, and maybe I'm talking to one person out of this that's listening to it because they're weirdos like me, but it's so easy to absorb the culture that's happening around you, whether it's the insanity of life that's happening right now, or your family, or the friends' lifestyle that you feel like you have to fit in with, culturally wise or whatever. But really, really praise yourself for who you are and how far you've come at this moment, regardless of the mistakes that you've made. I've done a lot of bad music, but I really praise that moment, and I'm glad that I was able to write it and come out with it, because the next step is closer to where you want to be. There's no back steps. So regardless of your environment or where you're growing up or doing, or your career, just know that the identity that you labeled yourself and other people labeled yourself, you do not have to be confined in for as long as however it is.
That's great advice. It's interesting that you brought that up, because this is episode, I don't know, 460 something like that of this podcast. And I remember when this one started, and actually 439 is what this one is. And if you go back, which you all can do, and listen to episode 1, it was all scripted. I was kind of like reading my little script and and it's very parallel to what we're talking about today. You could script out the greatest, the most practiced way you're going to come out of the closet.
Yep.
And totally get fucked up. Trust us.
Yeah.
It isn't going to be anything like you expect. And then you're going to have that moment when you're walking to do something the night before your music's next song's coming out. And it just happens that you have that conversation with mom and dad, and boom, there it is. Just trust the process, and just trust that you are going to do this the way you're meant to do it. And as Trent said, I love the don't let your environment bleed into your identity. You are who you are. And any one of us can let our environment cover us up until we take the stand to say, this is me and this is who I'm meant to be.
Super true.
Well, good luck with everything, man. We will have links to all ways that you can reach out and get the song. We won't have a link to his Venmo. That is, but really enjoyed this conversation, Trent. Really appreciate it.
I did too.
Time, and good luck with everything. Keep us posted as the next songs come out. And one of these days, you won't need anybody to Venmo you, man.
I accept that.
Very cool, man. Well, thanks again for being here, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Life Uncloseted family. Another episode of Life Uncloseted has come to an end, and it is time for all of us to sashay away and go face our fears, make those bold moves, and stand up to living our life without apology. But before you do, I've got a favor to ask of you. Would you hop over to iTunes or Spotify or Podbean or wherever it is that you're listening to this, and just give us a little bit of love if you like what we're doing here at Life Uncloseted. Here's what it does. It helps other people find the show. It helps other people get to know what we're all about. and you just might help change a life. In fact, if you really want to change a life, we'd love it if you just ask a friend to take a listen and see what they think. So that's it. Love you all deeply. I'm Rick Clemens, the host of Life Uncloseted, and never stop stepping out, stepping up, and stepping into living your life uncloseted.